Yes, this was the buggiest launch of any Pokemon game. Yes, this game is ugly and so blurry. And yes, it's been stuck like this for 3 months already. We'll talk about this later in the video, but regardless, it's still better than Sword and Shield, and in my opinion is the best non-remake main series title we've gotten in recent generations. So, for everyone in the comments saying it's the worst Pokemon game, I'm about to prove you wrong. Scarlet and Violet's models have more detail to them than any other Pokemon game. Yes, even Legends Arceus. Every previous 3D generation had Pokemon textures that were flat, like they were wearing some superhero overall costume. Not actually adding depth or layering to each model, but now if you zoom in, Pokemon like Pikachu actually have fur, while in previous games they didn't have any. Metal Pokemon like Magnemite have a silver-like shine to them for a metallic look. Reptile-like Pokemon have scales, etc. Grooves and lines are more defined than ever before, and some models in general have been updated. The only reason why Sword and Shield's models might look more clearer is because Gen 8 still had the older system of battling that creates small environments for Pokemon battles, which is a lot less taxing on the game to keep things at a higher resolution. While Scarlet and Violet have a live battle system, so it has to keep all of its environment as is in the battle, which result in some quality loss, especially with such poor optimization as the game's current state. In theory, if the game was working as well as Legends Arceus, model clarity and rendering distances should be just as good, but until they patch the game, it's hard to appreciate the models since the game overall kinda looks a bit unsaturated and blurry, especially on handheld mode. They also adjusted the models of Pokemon to their actual size and have size variations, which help push that these are wild Pokemon and not just all carbon copies spawning together like they were in Sword and Shield. Some Pokemon models have 2 battle stances, and others like Tropius are finally not stuck flying, but this isn't the case for all of them, as Salamander and Wingull still just hover around. The Gen 9 games as a whole are much better than Gen 8's. I and many others only enjoyed the newest features of Sword and Shield, which was the wild area, since until then we were stuck with the same style of running into the bushes and encountering Pokemon. Though the biggest problem about Sword and Shield was its hybrid game status. It's not completely open world since you have some towns and areas following the traditional style of smaller, linear paths with tall grass, which provide little deviation from the core route. But the wild area allowed you to explore any part of it that you wanted, like a true open world experience. Forcing this mix was what really held Sword and Shield back, which is exactly why both DLCs were basically just 2 extra wild areas. But even then, when a Pokemon chases you down, you're stuck waiting a few seconds on this black screen, battle startup animation, and plopped into a generic battle arena, which sometimes wasn't even the same environment, breaking the so-called open world immersion completely. This system needed to be overhauled, and thankfully it was. Now you can go up to any Pokemon, lock on, and toss your Pokeball at it, and bam! The battle starts there and then. And only comparing the base games, Scarlet and Violet have way more content and options for the players. The 3 main story paths are like fusing Legends Arceus' boss battles with the traditional main game's gym system and evil team system into one big package. And although the Starfall Street path was boring, at least it was a change of pace from the more conventional gameplay. And the fact that you can tackle the 3 story paths at any time made this experience feel that much more personal. The region of Paldea is so much bigger than Galar, that's including the map's verticality. I forgot how flat all the Pokemon games were with the restricted player movement, but now you can climb or fly your way across the map. And there was nothing that set Sword and Shield apart from the 3DS games other than the wild area and raids, which was a system we were already used to from Pokemon Go. Just comparing Sun and Moon to Sword and Shield from face value, there isn't that big of a difference, but switching to Scarlet and Violet, it becomes much more clear. On top of all this, Gen 8's base post-game gave players barely anything to do other than to prepare for competitive battling. There was no good way to shiny hunt until the Crown Tundra DLC, and only having the wild area as a real place to explore, which we would have already done for most of the game by then. Not to mention the little to no changes to battle animations or Pokemon stances from previous generations, and you get a very forgettable gen. This isn't to say that Scarlet and Violet do everything perfect. In fact, they took a step back by making Pokemon contactless in battle while they used to make contact in Legends Arceus, causing most battles to feel like Sword and Shield again with just slightly better animations and effects. But at least the variety of core gameplay options are a step in the right direction, as there are raids for those who want to have an online experience, a more streamlined hatching system with sandwich buffs for completing the Pokédex and shiny hunting, 3 story mode paths, and a fully open world map. So if you think Scarlet and Violet are the worst ever Pokemon games, that's not entirely true. The games themselves are designed much better than Sword and Shield and take more adventurous steps in its approach to the series. But what is true is that the lack of stable performance of the game hinders this experience greatly. For example, when the game works, I haven't had this much fun with a non-remake Pokemon game since probably X and Y. But when the game struggles to do the most basic of activities like load PC box Pokemon icons every single page, or open menus fast, or have a stable frame rate at any point during the game, or have an appropriate render distance where you don't literally see the quality dip and blur happening right in front of you, and so much more, I can see why people left the game disappointed. Again, the game definitely needs some deep polishing, like with the Pokeball throwing animations, the obnoxiously obvious pop-ins of objects and Pokemon, a mass release system for the PC, and an overall improvement to the delays of button inputs and loading screens, as well as a constant frame rate. But underneath all the bugs is something I think many people would enjoy, which is why I hope they fix the game soon, since 3 months after launch with only one update is nowhere near acceptable. So hopefully the Pokemon Day update at least stabilizes the game's performance. What do you guys think about this?